let's talk a little bit about what's happening and all the things you are. And we're going to use some of the vocabulary of jazz, 5/1s, 2/5/1s, and tritone substitutions. If you don't know what those are, that's fine. I made a series of videos that explain these to the non-musician, and you might want to check those out. It'll make it easier to follow what's happening here. We're going to break this down into different chunks. So the first chunk goes like this. Okay, so it's a sort of a strange sequence of chords. It's all going at one pace, and then we have that moment, where it just speeds up. So that speed up moment is going to be a key indicator to help your ear kind of jump into what's happening here. But before that, we have a series of chords that are built on this 5/1 relationship. The bottom note of all those chords is 5 up from the next chord. So we have 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So the lowest note of those chords, if you put it in its simplest position, goes from here, 5/1 relationship, 5/1 relationship, 5/1 relationship, 5/1 relationship. Now, it's not the standard 5/1 because they don't change to major and minor the way you'd expect them to, but they're still related in that way, which is what helps all that movement still kind of hang together. We're not going to worry about the extra notes in the chords, but it doesn't sound exactly the way you'd expect it to. If it was just standard 5/1s, it would sound more like this. Okay, and this is a little bit different, a little more sophisticated. Once we get here, that's when we have that strange moment where it goes, and it speeds up. So we're here. That part is actually not as complicated as it seems. We're on this chord originally, and we're going to end here. And if you remember tritone substitutions, that's the way they work. We have one chord that's here, and the tritone substitution is going to resolve to another chord that is just one key down from here. So the standard tritone substitution would be to play this chord, and we're going to play a close relative. We're going to change this note to that note, and it still works more or less the same way. So we have the tritone relationship, tritone substitution relationship between here and our final landing point. Of course, the more standard way to lead to this landing point is to use a 2/5. So we did both. Instead of using the tritone substitution to this chord or using the 2/5/1 to this chord, both are there. Tritone substitution, 2/5/1. So the whole thing looks like this, okay? Series of 5/1 relationships of the root note. We get to here, 2/5/1. Now the whole thing's gonna repeat, but the trick of this song is it doesn't repeat starting on the same original note as the first chord of the song, but that pattern is going to repeat starting where we ended. So we ended here. We had this tritone substitution, 2/5/1. Now we're going to start the whole pattern here and use this as our home base. So we're going to go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 to here, then 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 to here, and then 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 to here. All the same relationships. So maybe the easiest way to hear that it's the same but just shifted is when we're going to get to this point. We have a 2/5/1 in this other key center. So The second part sounds like this. It's the same as the first, but instead of starting here, we're starting here. And each part taken individually is just a bunch of 5-1 relationships of the lowest note of the chord. Just a bunch of 5-1 relationships of the lowest note of the chord, and tritone substitution thrown in there for fun. The whole thing put together so far is this then. Okay, so now we landed here. Two of the same thing, just shifted over. And you kind of heard I got a little bit lost there. It's just these relationships, it's sort of like a never-ending perpetual motion machine. When you get in these cycles of 5-1s, it's hard to remember where you are in the form, or at least for me. So now we ended here. We're just going to do a 2-5 again. So we got there with a quick 2-5. We were here. We did a quick 2-5. Now we're going to do a slow 2-5. 2-5-1. Now we're going to do a crazy different kind of 2-5. But it's still a 2-5. It's going to be a 2-5. For here. Okay, so it's still a 2-5-1, and I don't have a great explanation as far as why we went from here to here, because remember, Jerome Kern wrote whatever he wanted to. He may not have been thinking about this at all. These might have just been the chords that sounded good. So we can use the theory to explain it, why it works, but not necessarily ascribe motivation. So I don't have a clever way to say like, oh, it's obvious why we went down like that. We just did. So we were here, 2-5-1 in this key, and then we did a 2-5-1 in this key. And now to get back to the original part, we're just going to put in a quick 5 of the first chord at the very start of the song, which is here. So this is where the song repeats a little bit. This next part is the same as the very beginning of the song. We start with this chord. The 5 of here is up here. So that's why when we have that strange middle section that has our 2-5-1, and then a different 2-5, 1. If we want to set up our beginning chord again, we just throw in a quick 5. 5, and now we're back at the beginning. But instead, now when we get to here, we don't do the 2-5 anymore. What we're really doing here is tonicizing, or just giving a feel of home, not to this chord here. We're going to give the feel of home to this chord here. And that's going to wrap up the song, more or less. So when we're here, we're going to go to a different chord that's related. And this nice little series of chords that are going to give us our feel of coming back home here. We don't need to worry too much about why those work to bring it back home to that final key. So the song kind of goes in 4 big chunks. The first 2 chunks are the same with a shift. The third chunk is different. That's the and then the last chunk is similar to the beginning, but it finishes differently. So this is a long song. It's a complicated song. It has a lot of chords. It's challenging to play through because even though there's a logic to it, it's not the standard type of jumping around you do, but it still follows the same rules. You don't have anything in there that really violates the expectations of the series of 5/1s. And so even on a song without a lot of repeated material, it's still pulling from the same principles and rules. And ultimately, some players would find this just limiting. What if we don't always want this chord to lead to that one? What if we want this chord to just go anywhere? If we have a whole song built around setting up that 5/1 expectation, can we really break out of that? So that's the question that kind of brought an end to hard bop as being the thing, in addition to cool jazz that was at the forefront of jazz. And so we'll have to look at where it went next after that.